All right, David, thank you. Your voice, your vote coverage now. David Crowley, as you know, declared the winner in that very close Democratic primary last night and into early this morning. He moves on to face Republican Tom Tiffany in the race for governor come November. Our chief political reporter, Jason Zimmerman, now joins us live in the studio. He has more on what these campaigns are doing starting today, Jason.
Chris, Democrats wasting no time this morning, kicking off a unity tour just after Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley was declared the winner of last night's gubernatorial primary, defeating Francesca Hong by a razor-thin margin. Crowley now pivots to take on Republican Tom Tiffany in November's general election. That unity tour started with a breakfast event this morning in Middleton, where Crowley was joined by some of the other nominees for governor and lieutenant governor, plus members of Congress, including Senator Tammy Baldwin and Representative Mark Pocan, who both stayed neutral in the primary. Moving forward, Crowley also faces the challenge of gaining the support from those who voted for Hong, who's a Democratic socialist, to ensure they don't stay home for the midterms. This includes a vast number of young people previously energized by her campaign.
We may not agree on everything, but it doesn't mean that we can't come to the negotiating table and figure out how we bring everybody under this big tent. You know, the Democrats, we are a big tent. We should not be focusing on, kicking people from up under, saying that they don't belong within this tent.
On the Republican side, Tiffany kicked off what he's calling his common sense leadership tour today in Green Bay. His first big move as he shifts into the general election mode after winning his primary. He also called out Crowley for his managing of Milwaukee County.
I mean, remember, he ran deficits in Milwaukee County and then raised taxes to cover them. He allowed their health care plan to expire at the end of this year. And that says the county executive, should we be giving him a promotion to the most important seat in Wisconsin, the governorship of Wisconsin? I'd say that that's disqualifying.
Tiffany was also endorsed by President Donald Trump during the primary. However, now Democrats are expected to use that against him, making it a race in November on the president's approval rating. Chris, back to you.